The government, which is defending its new rent reforms, insisting they'll bring greater security for tenants and boost housing supply. However, Ireland's largest residential landlord, Ires Reit, has told investors the changes could deliver a potential 25% increase in rental income, prompting fierce criticism from the opposition and housing advocates. So, what will this mean in reality for renters, landlords and the wider housing market? Join me now in studio is Diarmuid McMahon of Fitzgerald McMahon, President of Ennis Chamber, and Shane Doody on the line, Shannon Sinn Féin representative and homeless family support worker. And you're both very welcome to the show. And Diarmuid, I mean, look, we'll get to maybe how some people are perceiving this, particularly the opposition and the optics of what's being said in just a little while. But from a property market perspective, does what Ires Reit are saying, that the new rent rules could deliver a potential 25% uplift in rental income, does that surprise you?
I don't know where the number came out of, to be quite honest, and I don't know how they're going to achieve their aims. Certainly, the new legislation is going to open up the opportunity on new tenancies after the 1st of March, that rents can be marked to market. But anybody who's in an existing tenancy will remain under the old rules. So effectively, you'll have two systems running in parallel. Those who are protected with the exact same protections as they have at the moment under the existing rules, and then new tenancies going forward. Yes, they can be marked to market, but on the flip side of that, I suppose the carrot, if you like, for the tenant, if anything, because it is a very difficult market for tenants, is that they will have security of tenure for 6 years. But I don't know how that number was calculated or where it came from.
Does the 25% sound quite optimistic to you?
I don't know whether it's is it based on their entire book? Is it based on individual tenancies? How many tenancies do they expect to turn over? I don't know how they've calculated it.
The figure you mentioned there, over 290,000 existing tenants, the government is pointing this out as well, won't be negatively impacted because of rent caps. But just to bring you in, Shane Doody, I presume you'll be thinking of those who are searching for housing right now, and they will be.
Yeah, of course, Alan. And I think it's a very interesting point that Diarmuid raised there as well, in the fact that this will create a two-tiered system, renting system in the country, and that, the new tenancies created after March 1st, will not be protected. And just to kind of put a number on what market value means, I mean, the average market rent for a two-bedroom apartment nationwide is about €2,086. So, I mean, that's already, very stark. Those are record high rents that we're seeing at the moment here. So it's hard to kind of see the reasoning behind this and why the government is pushing forward with this legislation.
Yeah, Diarmuid, we're hearing figures suggesting average rents of €1,852 could rise to over 2,300 between tenancies. I mean, is that realistic in the current market?
It really depends on where somebody's coming from. So it depends what their starting position is. And I think this is really alarming, because I think what it's really alarming for tenants, because again, 290,000 tenancies out there are protected under the old system. They're protected under the rent pressure zone. So we're really only talking about new tenancies going forward. And I suppose what is going to protect tenants in the long term is supply. Okay, that is what is going to protect tenants, because if you have supply that matches the demand that you have out there in the tenancy market, then tenants will have options and rents will stabilise by themselves without intervention. And what we've seen over the last 10 years is a steady flow of landlords leaving the market. A third, in around 30% of Sherry Fitzgerald sales each year are landlords leaving the market. If that's applied to the 40,000 or so transactions that are done in the country each year, you're getting in around between 10 and 15,000 tenancies being lost each year. And I think, just importantly, to take a Clare context on this, because we're getting sucked into a Reit, which is very much a Dublin thing. The real tenancy issues are not large landlords like that. They're what we call the mom and pop landlords, which are servicing the market at this this part of the country, and where we have the greatest tenancy difficulties. Regional Ireland's tenancy difficulties are even greater than they are in Dublin. And they are the people who are going to provide supply. And everything that has been done over the last number of years is contributing to them leaving. The announcement of this new legislation is continuing to them leaving. And I think importantly, the good part of it from a tenancy perspective is that that the tenant will have a security of 6 years. They will have a certainty of their position for a 6-year period and know where they're going to be, and basically, except under extraordinary circumstances, won't be able to be removed from the property.
And just before I bring Shane back in, I mean, I think part of this is what I want to talk about. We were touching on there not every landlord is the same, and when a story like this comes out and you hear about the country's largest landlord telling investors the new rent rules could deliver a potential 25% increase in rental income, the optics of that jar with some people.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah. You're stressing it's important not to tar every landlord with the same brush. They're not all big fat cats with cigars chomping on a cigar who have lots of money. There are people who just have one property and have found that it's been a massive headache. Maybe they had troublesome tenants, found it difficult to get them out. It's more trouble than it's worth, more hassle in their life. And as you say, they're getting out of the market, and ultimately that leaves us with a big problem. There's less properties out there for people.
Correct, and I think a big portion of the, and I should add, a lot of tenancies work very well, and you have very good tenants out there. It is, and the headaches that have been created haven't necessarily been created by individual tenants.
Yeah.
It's more the system than anything else, and the system and the uncertainty with which landlords have operated in. And the reality is they're talking with their feet. They're leaving the market. So that is so. How do we create a system where we retain landlords within the market, because ultimately that is what is going to solve the problem for tenants.
Shane, I mean, your party and your party leader, indeed, Mary Lou McDonald, describing this as a bonanza for property funds. I'm sure you would view this as effectively a transfer of wealth from renters to large landlords. But do you accept the point that Diarmuid is making as well? And I'm sure a lot of people, their hackles are gotten up hearing this story and thinking it sounds maybe a little bit opportunistic, but that there's quite a lot, just as there's a variety in terms of type of renters out there, there is also amongst landlords, and we certainly need those mom and pop landlords, and we don't need them to be exiting the market.
Yeah, and well, there's no doubt in that, Alan. Small landlords, obviously they face pressures as well, trying to operate. But what we heard coming from Ires Reit was it was stark, that 25% increase in, potential rental income uplift. And they also added with minimal cost added. That is like millions additional annual rental income is what they're saying. And that should worry any renter out there at the moment.
I don't agree with that. It should not worry any renter. That's not true. That's alarming tenants. That's alarming tenants. That's alarming tenants unnecessarily. That's really unfair.
But the legislation coming through should worry renters, Diarmuid. It should, because it's an effective end to the rent pressure zones as we know them. It's stripping back, security of tenure, and supply obviously is a massive issue, but this is not going to fix supply either.
Diarmuid?
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's not going to fix supply. Ultimately, it's new homes coming into the market and supply coming into the market is what's going to fix that. But we're in County Clare. We don't have REITs or investor funds in County Clare. We have mom and pop landlords. The security of tenure is actually being improved for tenants in that they will get a 6-year certainty in terms of what their future is. So that I wouldn't agree with that because there is a better security of tenure than there would have been under the old system. Honestly, I don't know that I would prefer any of these systems, because each one of them, bottom line, is contributing to the problems we're having right here in County Clare. And I'm not putting to one side completely and I'm definitely not trying to defend REITs or larger investment funds, but they're not really in the market here in County Clare, and we're here in County Clare, and the people who are investing in property in County Clare are mom and pops, teachers, pensioners,
and even some of the potential benefits of what Reid are mentioning. They've said that the regulatory landscape in Ireland has changed for the better, and that all of this could allow for more apartment building, which is great for Dublin, but not down here.
But ultimately, if that investment is there, you will see if that return is there in the urban areas for those larger investment funds, you will see more investment. And if anything, we've learned, we saw over the last few years, because of the lack of those funds investing, you saw a fall off in the delivery of apartments in larger urban areas because they stepped back from the market. So yes, there probably will be a great return. I don't know to what extent. I don't know how they've calculated their numbers, but that will attract more investment. More investment will attract more apartments, which will help solve the problem in the urban areas. But down here we still have the same problem. They're not going to be a solution for us. We have to make sure we keep those landlords in the market to provide supply for tenants.
And Shane, that is an important point. I mean, the reforms aim to encourage investment in apartment building, but apartment building not as much of an option here. And is there a danger that the type of supply being encouraged will remain unaffordable to ordinary workers, and specifically in Clare, the type of supply isn't really an option for us?
Well, I think it will, and I think we're already seeing record rents every year, and just to go back to that DAFT report again, that market rents rose by 4.4% in 2025, and that's the latest rental report by DAFT, and that's as well with the increase last year of 3.6%. So they're already at sky high, and this is a time of a cost of living crisis. This is a time when people are being pushed to their pin of the collar already, and the fact that the government is pushing through, and it really seems like they've rushed this legislation as well, is totally unacceptable, and it's going to be disastrous, I think, for renters. And like that point Diarmuid mentioned at the start, it's a two-tiered system. And it's going to disproportionately affect young people, I think, and students, and especially those in the more transient areas, and the college areas and stuff. They're going to be disproportionately affected. Their lets may only be 9 months, and then after that 9 months is up, are they going to be then facing those high market rates? I mean, these are all the points that need to be considered, and it seems like it's going to be unfair on young people and on students.
Yeah, I mean, Diarmuid, these reforms, they ultimately just risk widening the gap between those already in secure tenancies. If you're amongst those over 290,000 people, you'll wipe your brow and go, phew, and those trying to enter the rental market, and that there just becomes a yawning chasm.
Yeah, and I would agree that the speed with which this has been introduced, the detail that has been drip fed over the last number of months, and how it's come to pass has created a lot of uncertainty. And it's created a lot of uncertainty. We've seen a big uptake, an increase in the number of notices being given in the last few months, where landlords are saying, geez, we don't know what's going on here. I think crucially, if you can think about this, you're a family, you've young children, you have an investment property, you maybe they're going to college in a few years, and you're being told, look, I mightn't be able to sell this property for 6 years. And that's what people are worried about. They're concerned that they're going to be locked in and not have access to their capital after, so there's two sides to this, and it's difficult on both sides.
If you were at the cabinet table, if you were advising government, what would you prioritise? Investor certainty, tenant protection, or perhaps a different approach, a different balance altogether?
I would prioritise trying to get investment into the delivery of supply as quickly as possible. I think at a local level here, we're starting to see some planning permissions come through the process Frustratingly, we still have, in the town of Ennis, we have 2 sewage treatment plants. One of them's at max capacity. The other one, we're told, is in around, has capacity for 1,000 units. But you've got a 5-year lead-in time to upgrade. So that basically means the Clon Road system, although it has maybe capacity of 1,000 units, and that's hearsay because it's very difficult to get the exact numbers on it. You need to start now upgrading that plant. You can't wait until it's at capacity. I mean, it's absolutely incredibly frustrating that we're waiting till things are at capacity and they go, oh, jeepers, it's at capacity. Now we have to wait 5 years to upgrade something.
It's almost unforgivable when we know well in advance that we need to do this and it's not done.
It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal lack of planning. It's shocking. Like the numbers are there. The demographic changes that are going to happen in County Clare in the next 10 to 15 years will make people's heads spin. You have an ageing population, you have depopulation in rural areas. Every week in our businesses and all estate agencies, we're talking to more mature people, particularly in West Clare and East Clare, in more rural areas, whose children have moved on. They're not coming back to the farm, and they're saying, they're looking for, where am I going to live? Who's going to look after me? What connection am I going to have to community and services? They may be asset wealthy relatively, but there's going to be a huge transition and change over the next 15 to 20 years in County Clare, and we're not preparing for it. And it will be a move to more urban areas. I think a lot of support needs to be given to rural villages so that at least, they become hubs for those communities rather than people only moving back into Ennis. But there's a big transformation coming and we're not prepared for it.
Shane, to finish with yourself, do you want to add anything to what Diarmuid said there?
Yeah, 100%. I think infrastructure around the country, even nationwide, has been underinvested in for years, and it's something that needs to be desperately looked at. We also need to look at things like the planning laws, and we need to look at those as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Text in here on 086 1800 964 from a listener saying the government are ideologically opposed to the state building housing. They believe that companies such as the one we've been talking about have the best interests of the people at heart when they have one goal: profit.